Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of July 10th, 2023. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris?
Here.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Here.
Commissioner Lanson?
Here.
Commissioner Link?
Present.
Chair McMahon?
Here. Tonight we have with us Deputy Community Development Director Fabiola Zelaya Meliker. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Yeah, we have a supplemental packet that has been distributed to the commission and posted containing written correspondence related to item 7A that was received after the agenda packet was published.
Thank you.
Excuse me, and 7B.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any public comments that are not related to, okay, then I will not read that. Next, we have the consent calendar with the minutes of the June 19th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Any discussion on the motion? Will the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And when you're ready, will the clerk please open the public meeting for item 7A?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7A, a proposed 30-unit apartment complex. Find that the project qualifies for Class 32 infill and Class 5 minor alterations to land use limitations categorical exemptions under the California Environmental Quality Act. Approve the following applications for the constructions of a multifamily residential project and associated landscape, hardscape, and grading. Residential Plan Development Number 2021-70328-RPD to allow construction of a 47,344 square foot 30-unit apartment project with a density bonus, including 5 affordable units consisting of 1 building with an intermixed single-level above-grade parking structure and a total of 42 parking spaces. The applicant is requesting concessions as allowed by state density bonus law to allow an increase in the maximum allowed height from 25 feet to 41 feet 8 inches and a decrease in the north side yard setback from 15 feet to 5 feet, and a waiver of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code to allow a reduction of the landscaping required around the perimeter of the above-ground portions of the proposed parking structure on the northeast side as allowed by Thousand Oaks Municipal Code Section 9-4.2405, and parcel merger number PM-2023-70002 to allow the merger of 3 parcels into 1 parcel to establish 1 legal lot. Located at 170 Herbs Road, assessor's parcel number APN 670-0-250-230. The applicant is Allied Management Group.
Thank you. Presenting on behalf of staff is Associate Planner Justine Kendall. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners and members of the public. The presentation before you is a request, again, to construct a new 30-unit apartment building on a vacant parcel located at 170 Herbs Road. The applicant's request is that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and to approve the applications just mentioned for both a residential plan development permit and a parcel merger. The subject property is a 0.74 gross acre lot, approximately 800 feet northeast of the intersection of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Herbs Road. The topography of the site ascends approximately 33 feet from Herbs Road to the northwest and to the rear, the southeast of the property, which ends at the base of an existing retaining wall serving the 45-unit YOLO East apartments located at 1825 Los Feliz Drive. The site is currently vacant and covered in mowed grasses and a few non-protected trees. Existing multifamily residential surrounds the site to the east, north, and west, including across Herbs Road with single-family residential on the property to the south. The general plan land use element designation for the property is high-density residential, which allows 30 dwelling units per acre maximum. And the zone is residential plan development for a maximum of 20 dwelling units per acre. A multifamily use is allowed in this zone, subject to review and approval of an RPD permit. And per California state law, as the general plan land use designation allows for a greater density than the zoning designation, the higher density level applies. The property, as I mentioned, is one of the last remaining vacant lots on Herbs Road, and although it is assigned a single tax assessor parcel number, or APN, the subject site is actually 3 separate legal lots, which are requested to be merged as part of this project. The proposed project includes the construction of a 3-story, 30-unit split-level apartment building with the parking structure notched into the existing slope, moving from Herbs at the front towards the YOLO East apartment building to the rear. The project proposes 26 one-bedroom units and 4 two-bedroom units for a total of 30 units. 5 of the 30 units will be designated as affordable for households in the low-income category, which is defined as households with incomes at or below 80% or less of the area median income for Ventura County. The applicant is utilizing state density bonus law in the following way. The maximum density for this project without a density bonus is 22 dwelling units, using the formula you see in the first line, and the applicant is proposing that 20% or 5 of the 22 units be affordable at the low income level. By providing 20% of the base units for residents with low income levels, the applicant is entitled to up to a 35% density bonus. This allows the applicant to add up to 8 more dwelling units for a total of 30 units maximum. Per state density bonus law, based on the percentage of low income units offered, the applicant is also entitled to 2 incentives or concessions for this project. The 2 requested concessions include 1, an increase in the maximum allowed height from 25 feet to 41 feet and 8 inches, and 2, a decrease in the north side yard setback from 15 feet to 5 feet. They are also partially requesting the reduced parking rate allowed by the state density bonus law, which I will get into later on in this presentation. The project's architectural design is a contemporary style, similar to the adjacent YOLO East apartments. The exterior walls of the building are a mix of 5 earth tone colors, with materials primarily consisting of cement plaster and fiber cement board siding, with metal awnings, decorative balcony railings, and a cornice cap detail. Frontage improvement features include cast concrete wood grain around the street-facing planters and a trellis wrapping one corner of the ground floor lobby. It should be noted that the applicant team worked with staff to incorporate feedback and recommendations for improved design and upgraded details. The front facade of the proposed project will be elevated slightly from the street, with landscaping in the front similar to other multifamily development across the street and to the north. Additionally, there is vertical and horizontal articulation on the building that enhances its visual appearance from Herbs Road, including a common use patio on the ground level and balconies projecting from the building face above. Where visible above ground, the parking structure incorporates decorative screens and landscaping, as you can see here. While it is generally preferred to locate parking structures towards the rear of the structure or completely underground, the project, as proposed, minimizes land alteration by notching the parking garage into the lower part of the existing slope and stepping the structure in a split-level design as the elevation rises. Overall, the average height of the building is 32 feet 6 inches. The proposed structure includes a maximum parapet height of 41 feet 8 inches, which occurs at the top of the parapet screening the mechanical equipment above the second-story lofts facing the street. Per the municipal code section, which was in effect at the time of the project submittal, the maximum building height in the RPD zone is 25 feet. The building height may be raised by increasing the side yard setbacks 1/2 foot for each 2 feet increase in height. In order to avoid increasing the side yard setbacks in this way, the applicant has requested a concession to increase the maximum height allowed. Existing developments in the area also utilize 2- and 3-story buildings. The YOLO East Apartments directly east behind the subject site, shown here as the large gray structure in the top right corner, will continue to be visible above the proposed project. A second-floor setback on the south side, adjacent to the single-family residence, will reduce height in the area immediately adjacent to that existing structure. The municipal code does not specifically state a minimum rear yard setback requirement for multifamily apartment complexes, but rather the required setback is to be determined by the Planning Commission in conjunction with the review of the project. Based on past approvals of residential projects in the city, a 15-foot rear setback has generally been required. The applicant is proposing 8 feet and 4 inches minimum for an approximate length of 26 feet at the south end of the building, and between 13 feet and 18 feet for the remainder of the building. It is staff's position that the proposed rear yard setback is appropriate, as adequate light and air will be available to residents of both the existing multifamily building on the adjacent property and the proposed building. A minimum side yard setback of 15 feet is required. However, the applicant has elected to request a concession to allow a side yard setback on the north side of 5 feet for the trash area only. With the acceptance of the density bonus concession, the project meets all setbacks required by the municipal code. The municipal code also provides a space allocation formula to be used as a guideline in evaluating the site plan for any residential project in the RPD zone. The guidelines and proposed allocation are shown here for high-density residential projects. Although the structure coverage exceeds the amount stated in the guidelines, the amount of surface parking is greatly reduced from the recommended amount. Due to the site constraints and number of units provided, staff finds that the proposed space allocation is acceptable. The project site proposes direct access from Herbs Road. The proposed project includes direct pedestrian access to the lobby and small outdoor seating area from the existing sidewalk along the property frontage. Direct street access is not provided to the residential units, as none are located on the ground floor. Public bus stops are available along Thousand Oaks Boulevard, with the nearest located about 850 feet from the project entrance. Bicycle lanes are also located along the boulevard and Hillcrest Drive in this area. Primary vehicular ingress to the parking garage underneath the residential units is provided from a new one-way driveway access from Herbs Road on the left side of your screen. And egress is provided via another new one-way driveway on the right side of the garage seen here. Traffic from the project is estimated to result in an average of 15 trips during the PM peak hours. Standard city practice for requiring a traffic impact study and city policy for requiring a vehicle miles traveled, or VMT analysis, is when a project is expected to generate an additional 100 PM trips over the current land use. Since the proposed project would incur a net increase in PM peak hour trips of 15 trips, neither a traffic impact study nor a VMT analysis has been required. 40 parking spaces will be located in the garage, and 2 temporary spaces are proposed to be located just outside the garage entrance for a total of 42 parking spaces. 2 on-street parking spaces already exist in a pull-in area in front of the property, but do not count towards the proposed parking. In addition, infrastructure for electric vehicle charging stations and bicycle parking in front of the building is proposed. Pursuant to both state density bonus law and the municipal code, the parking ratios required for multifamily apartment buildings are 1 parking space per 1-bedroom unit. However, the municipal code requires 2 parking spaces per 2-bedroom unit, as opposed to 1.5 parking spaces for a 2-bedroom unit, which is allowed per state law. In addition, state law does not require guest parking, where the municipal code normally requires 1/2 parking spaces per unit. As such, the state law would allow the applicant to provide as few as 32 spaces, where the municipal code would normally require 49 parking spaces to be provided based on the number and type of units provided. As the applicant has requested the state standard, guest parking is not required. However, they are providing the municipal code required number of spaces per residential unit type and have provided 8 additional spaces to accommodate 3 temporary rideshare or delivery spaces within the garage and the 2 temporary lobby access spaces outside the garage. There are no protected trees currently on site. However, one 24-inch box Coast Live oak tree is proposed as part of the conceptual landscape plan. If the plan is approved, a formal landscape plan will be required, and technical evaluation of that plan will be provided through a landscape plan check process to ensure compliance with the city's landscape and irrigation standards. As seen in this table, the total surface parking and driveway area requiring landscape treatment is about 2,770 square feet. The total landscaped area provided is approximately 5,224 square feet, which greatly exceeds the municipal code requirement for a minimum parking area landscape coverage, including the additional 25 square feet for each compact space. The project complies with code requirements for the required landscape areas, including that landscape area allocation. However, the municipal code also requires that the perimeter of any single level above grade parking structure shall be provided with a landscape planter of at least 5 feet in width at the ground level. The project complies with this requirement except for the portions of the parking structure above grade on the northeast side due to the required driveway width. As such, the applicant is requesting a waiver to provide relief from this requirement as allowed by the municipal code. Staff believes the proposed project meets the intent of the code as all parts of the parking structure that are visible from the street incorporate decorative elements and landscaping. All units include private patios and balconies, as well as access to common amenities. The ground level provides a mailroom and a lobby, and outdoor seating area with trellis and bicycle stands. The second floor consists of the courtyard, which includes an outdoor barbecue and fire pit, as well as a separate gym area and business center with wet bar. The municipal code requires that all apartment units have a minimum private balcony or patio area of 100 square feet with a minimum depth of 7 feet. The project meets and in some cases exceeds these requirements as proposed. There is an elevation difference of approximately 33 feet between Herbs Road and the high point of the rear of the property. The subject request includes grading on approximately half of the property, which is characterized by 25% or greater natural terrain. Encroachment into this terrain may be allowed by the Planning Commission or City Council. In the past, such encroachments have been allowed if they involve isolated pockets or fingers of steeper terrain, have limited visibility from a community-wide standpoint, and are necessary for a proposed project. For this project, the area of encroachment is not in a highly sensitive area, such as on a protected ridgeline, where the encroachment would result in a negative visual impact as viewed from a street. Due to the existing site conditions and constraints, encroachment into 25% terrain for the proposed project is unavoidable. To reduce the impact of grading, the applicant has incorporated a split-level design with the building set into the slope, utilizing internal and external retaining walls in lieu of a normal graded pad type design. As such, it is staff's position that the proposed location of the project and split-level design minimizes impact to the natural landforms and will result in a desirable project which contributes to the city's housing goals. The proposed project has been designed to meet the intent of the city's standards, codes, and policies. The proposed building design and site layout integrate well with the surrounding development and has a cohesive architectural design meeting the city's architectural design guidelines. Based on the analysis and finding contained in the staff report provided in this presentation, staff recommends approval of this project, subject to the conditions of approval in the resolution. I will note that there has been one or two really changes to the resolution in conditions 14E and 14F. The words shall should be changed, or the words should be changed to the words shall, which strengthen the affordable housing agreement requirements. And I can read those out if desired. Overall, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution finding that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and approving the applications listed here. That concludes my presentation. I am available for questions.
Thank you. Very thorough. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kendall, for the presentation and addressing the comments regarding the affordable units to shall. I think that'll be a good strengthening for the public benefit we get for that. The one question I did have, and I think I have the answer, but I would just like maybe a little clarity from maybe our city attorney on this one. So the general plan designation for this is high-density residential. The range is 15 to 30 units per net acre. The zoning allows for 20. But this is a project whose baseline starts with 30 units per acre, plus the density bonuses on top of that. And the Housing Accountability Act, I think that is what is stressed here, points to a particular section that says, at least it was in the staff report, purpose of the section of proposed housing development is not inconsistent with the applicable zoning standards and criteria and shall not require a rezoning. If the housing development is consistent with the objective general plan standards and criteria, but the zoning for the project site is inconsistent with the general plan. Now there's a first sentence. There's a second sentence that sort of says it can be, if we've notified them and told them to comply, they get the density that the general plan states. I wanted to just get an understanding of what the city's position is on this. Are we saying that the zoning is inconsistent with the general plan, or are we saying it's consistent, it's just that in these cases where the density is, state law is kind of giving the rights to the project proposer to the density allowed by the general plan designation? Long sentence, but I'm sure you...
I think I have it. First of all, you summarized the issue quite well. I think the quick answer is the latter, which is that we look at what the general plan allows, which is up to 30. And in this case, the zoning is 20. But as you noted, under the Housing Accountability Act and under the Housing Crisis Act for the state of California that we all are at this point very familiar with, they have made it quite clear that if you look at those two numbers, say, okay, that's inconsistent, right? You go with the general plan or the higher number, and it doesn't matter which, and clearly now it doesn't matter which one under SB 330, so we would go with the 30. So the answer is you could say that it's consistent because it fits under that number, but for the purposes of tonight, we would say that it is going to be 30 units per acre, and as you noted, with the density bonus, that's not in the equation, but this is what gives the person the incentive to build up to that, which is, again, the bonus of adding market rate units if he provides affordable to a certain extent. I hope that answers your question.
It did, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kendall. I just kind of want to always start first of why are we here? So at the very beginning, you identified two issues as to why this is before us. And based on your presentation, it seems like there's a few more in terms of the grade and other things. So I want to make sure, why is this before us, and clarify exactly what areas that we have discretion and what areas that we're required to accept by virtue of maybe density bonus laws.
So the project is before you because of the grading on the slopes, natural slopes steeper than 25%. That can only be allowed by the Planning Commission, as well as the granting of that one landscape waiver. In addition, they asked for incentives under state density bonus law.
So to the extent that state bonus law applies, those things would come along kind of as a tag along in the process.
Yes.
And then obviously the CEQA was the other requirement that we have to go through, right? Obviously.
Right. The exemptions wouldn't have to go before you normally.
Okay, but for the other things that we
Right.
talk, all right, so I just want to make sure I understood exactly what we're supposed to be going through. And again, just as a weird curiosity, is this the same applicant that came before the city twice before, based on the history? If you know?
For on this site?
Yes.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. As you noted, there was a submission that we got earlier today. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that and respond to it, or we should have whoever it is, if they're here, discuss it first. But there are some issues they bring up that probably I'd like to get some responses to at some point. But I don't know if
Sure.
we want to let them go first if they're here.
My understanding is that he will speak when that time comes.
Okay, we can address it then. That's all I have.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Link?
Thank you, Ms. Kendall, for the presentation. I had a couple of general questions, and then just to sort of put on record what we had had an aside about earlier. So one of my concerns about access for this project is with regard to fire, and it is my understanding from Ventura County Fire that all aerial access will be handled from Herbs Road. There is no need for the apparatus to actually enter the site.
That's right.
Okay. And then I had another question with regard to easements or dedication. So staff report talked about that there is a reduction in the net size of the site as a result of dedication of the sidewalk, but I couldn't find anything in the conditions that mentioned anything about dedication or easements except with regard to the driveway. Has the sidewalk already been dedicated to the city, or is that included as part of this project?
I believe the sidewalk has already been dedicated and developed. It's there today.
It's there today, okay. Yeah, it probably done as a result of the Herbs Road construction years back, so just wanted to make sure that those two are separate. So the dedication is purely at the driveways, or at least that easement, the sidewalk behind the new driveways is the only dedication occurring as part of this project.
I'm sorry, is the only dedication that's what?
It's the only dedication as part of this project is the sidewalk that's going to be constructed at the top or behind the driveway.
Right.
That's, okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Kettlehut?
Thank you for the presentation. Can you go over the setbacks again for the adjoining properties? I want to understand what the setbacks are as proposed.
So the setback between the single-family property, I'll say down the hill, closer to Thousand Oaks Boulevard, ranges from, I think it's something like 26 feet where the proposed building is next to the existing house, and is as short as 15 feet from, that's the closest point of the proposed building to the property line. That occurs in the rear yard of the single-family residence. They have a steep slope that's undeveloped on that property. And then on the uphill side, or up street side, the setbacks are generally 15 feet from the property line, except for the trash chute area, which gets as close as 5 feet.
And that would be next to the Foresight Lane project, property?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you about asking about the setbacks. The driveway on the side with the small house, how close is the driveway to the property line?
It's fairly close. I can look and get you the exact number, but it is close enough that we required, as a condition of approval, a wall to be built to block headlight glare.
And how tall will that wall be?
You know what? I would need to look up the condition of approval that we required. I believe it has to be no shorter than 3 feet on the proposed project side and 6 feet on the single-family home side. But I don't want to misquote myself.
Have you had any contact with the owner of the single-family home?
No.
So they have not objected to this project?
We've had no contact from them at all, no.
And the portion where the building is only 15 feet away, that's towards the very back of where this small house is?
That's right. So that part where it's 15 feet from the property line is midway about up a very steep hill in their backyard that's undeveloped, covered in trees.
Okay. Now, the other side of the property, the trash enclosure, is that in the far back corner of the property at the farthest back side, or is it in central? Where is it
It's kind of in the
located?
middle.
In the middle?
So the courtyard's in the middle of the building. And the trash chute is along kind of at the kind of caps that courtyard in the
Okay,
middle.
and so I'm trying to visualize it with the apartments on the other side of the property line. Are there apartments right there? Are there units right there where the trash chute would be placed?
No, So
Is
if you
it the,
look-
is it the parking lot area?
that's correct. So on the screen here, and I'm sure the applicant will get into this as well, the dark dashed area is the neighboring existing property. So the kind of thicker dashes are the top, and the thinner dashes are the finished floor, estimated finished floor for that existing property. So you can see the trash chute, it's labeled elevator because that's on the other side, but that thin green tower kind of in the middle there. Can I point with this? Ah, yes, right here. This is the trash chute area. And it's incorporated as part of the building, but it's what juts out closer to the property line. And you can see this is the open parking area of the neighboring property. So the units of that property don't start until here.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Let me see if there were any other questions. I guess that's it. Thank you. Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. Just one last question. For the two parking spaces in front, any idea what the temporary parking requirements, time periods will be?
So my understanding for the two, that like if you go to the site now, there's a dip in the sidewalk, that will be kind of pull-in area only. So dropping off for a ride share type of a
Okay,
use.
so it is not long-term parking, it is literally just drop-on?
No, I
drop-on.
don't believe you can actually park there.
Okay.
You can just
all right.
pull in briefly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Okay, at this time, we'll call up the applicant, and then we have a couple of public speaker cards, and the applicant has 15 minutes. And when you get to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners. My name is Mark Pettit. I'm with Lauterbach and Associates Architects in Oxnard, and we are really excited to be here tonight. Wanted to thank our planner, Justine, for the 2+ years that she's put up with us as we've gone through the process. Our project tonight before you, as mentioned, is a 30-unit apartment building with 5 low-income units. Our units vary in size from 1 to 2 bedrooms. Some have lofts. All units have private patios and decks and/or decks. As mentioned, we have a fairly significant amount of amenities, including a fitness center, business center, community room, and that has a little kitchenette in it. Those are interior to the building. And then outside in our plaza, our open space, we have an outside kitchen, barbecue area, outside play area, outside fire pit, and multiple seating areas with landscaping. Our parking, as mentioned, is in a podium-type structure on the ground floor. It's screened. And off of that podium, we have our main entrance lobby with our mail center, all ADA compliant access off of the public way. We have an elevator and an outside patio fronting on Herbs to kind of soften the building and soften the entrance as you kind of come in. We also have a seating area down at the sidewalk area, kind of an architectural feature incorporated into some raised planter walls. So it gives you a little variety of architecture as you're along the street and walking along the sidewalk. The building architecture is modern design, and we were very focused on providing a lot of plane differences, patios, activating the front of the building, and making it active, with different materials throughout and different colors. Our building will incorporate energy-saving design features such as water fixtures, insulation, 2x6 walls with double-pane windows. We are going to be having solar on the building, so it'll be an electric building. And our solar panels and all of our mechanical units will be screened on the rooftops. Very energy-efficient building. We've designed our project to, as mentioned, California State Density Bonus requirements, as mentioned, and I think Justine did a nice job of going through what we're asking for. I wanted to put forth some clarifications and some additional information about the project. Our living space is approximately 25,000 square feet. The building's bigger, but the living space itself is about half of the amount that is the total building. That includes the community space areas and our parking area on the lower level. And as was mentioned, as far as the setbacks, especially on the north setback, we do have landscaping, trees, as the building is adjacent to the nearby apartment project, and the trash enclosure is in a building. It has chutes, it's fire sprinklered, it's vented, and the access is through an overhead door, like a metal garage door, that would be opened and the bins would come out. So it's not a typical trash enclosure, it's part of the building, and that's why the setback request to 5 feet. We're not proposing any variances, just the concessions as mentioned and the waivers as allowed underneath state law. We're not proposing any waivers based on each low-income unit. We do not believe that the building would hinder anybody from putting solar panels on rooftops. There's lots of space in our neighboring building to do that, even though we have landscape trees and our building height. We are not aware of any noise issues with the exception of during construction, which will follow the city guidelines for a time of construction. So that's an important thing, that in the way that we've got it set up, we're really not we're not anticipating any additional noise. All of our parking is internal to the building. Our building, it will be designed so that like most buildings, it won't block cell phone coverage. And we have the building designed so that we have 3 windows along the north elevation. The top window is a second story above a living room area, so nobody can view out of that. We have 2 other windows that are in a living dining room area that we can certainly reduce and or make them high windows to minimize the visibility. But other than that, that's all the windows that we have on that side, looking 15 foot through the landscape to our neighbor's property. The project will have the designed drainage that is consistent with the City of Thousand Oaks requirements. And obviously, we won't be able to get a grading permit until we meet all of those requirements for drainage and making sure that we don't have any concerns about any subsidence or anything like that with the property, any erosion. One of the things that I wanted to mention is because we are close to the property, adjacent properties, we will, and we do have a structural engineer and a soils engineer on our team. And our exit way is actually below the adjacent property. It's not above, it's below. And we take that very seriously. We know that we will not be able to get a building permit unless we meet all the code requirements, structurally, soils, the whole bit. So we have a number of options that we can do for the engineering of the building, engineering of the retaining walls. all pretty standard and will be followed to the T. Also, during construction, we'll be able to have our soils engineer and our structural engineer on site to make sure that they're built the way that they are permitted, and making sure that in the documentation of all that, removal and replacement for foundations and for any type of retaining wall and building walls, that they're strictly adhered to. And I'm sure the building official will want to make sure that we provide reports accordingly. So all that is pretty standard, and we do that on many buildings throughout the county. We aren't going on to anybody else's property or taking any property from anyone. I know that was a potential concern. And one of the other things that wasn't mentioned is the power lines that are on the property, we'll be undergrounding those. That's a significant cost of the project, and one of the reasons why we increased with the density bonus, so that we can pay for that and remove those power poles and underground the electrical. So it's a fairly significant undertaking. And as far as our parking, as was mentioned, we try to provide as many parking spaces as we can on the property, even though we are allowed to go less, but we decided that it was better for the project to add more. There were some questions about the single-family house, and we have about 5 foot of landscaping on that side, along with retaining walls that will go from about 2.5, 3 feet up through probably about 4 or 5 feet as you go up the hill. So, and there'll be landscaping and trees and a hedge also on that side as we go up the hill. So we followed the city codes, we followed and incorporated our allowed concessions through California State Density Bonus Law, and we feel that we have an exciting project that's taking a very tough site and making it into residents that we think will give a high quality of life for the residents. We're undergrounding the power poles and really just overall improving the neighborhood. So with that, I thank you for listening to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and if it's possible, if there's any questions before the close of the hearing, I'd like to come up and see if I can answer those for you.
Thank you.
Great,
Do we have any
thanks.
questions of the applicant? Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Pettit, thank you. I'm going to ask you the same 2 questions I ask everybody that comes before us, so don't be offended. My first question, as always, is this something where you intend to actually build it, or are you just getting the entitlements to then flip it? The reason I even asked that is that's why I asked whether or not this was the same owner, because it seems as if there was 2 prior submissions years ago, and I want to make sure that this is something that's really looked at as building, or is it just something to get the improvements to then flip it and sell it?
Well, we're only the architects, I'm not the developer, but we've been going through this for a while, so I would imagine that they're planning on building it. Obviously, getting financing, once we hopefully get our approvals, it's a long process.
Very true. Second, and again, I know you can't say, but you're here as an agent on behalf of the owner. Are you agreeable with all the terms and conditions that were in the staff report?
Yes, thank you for reminding me that. We did review those, we worked with Justine on it, we see no exceptions or questions on any of those, and agree with the change in the language.
As to the single-family home that we thought, and Commissioner Kittle, I think 32 says the wall has to be at least 42 inches high. The wall between the single-family home, is that the height you're looking at doing? Because it says at least 42. I don't know if there's...
Well, we're thinking that it might kind of follow the hill up, kind of jog as it kind of goes up. So that's basically it. There's a garage that's there on that corner. But we do want to make sure that with the wall and hedge and our trees that we've got planted along there, it's a pretty thick screening in that area.
And I think, as was already mentioned, we have not heard from that homeowner. Is it anytime you or anybody, a part of your team, talked to them?
I have not personally, but we've, reached out to everybody, and of course, the noticing that was done. So the signs have been on site for over a year, I believe. So
I'm not doubting. I just, again, considering the effect, we just want to make sure that
Sure.
somebody, if there's going to be a wall built next to them, they have some involvement in the concept, that's all. You had mentioned the solar panels, which again, I don't know if you had seen the submission we received. from Mr. Nalon, who I'm assuming is going to be
I
speaking.
have.
And you
Yes.
mentioned solar panels. Did you do any evaluation as to, because you said it won't be blocking them. I don't know if you have any backup for that.
Well, the way that we looked at it with our solar angles, that typically in apartment buildings, and I've been involved with architecture and apartment buildings for many, many, many years, decades. And usually they're placed on the roof, usually at the highest portion of the roof, facing south or southwest, and that's the most energy efficient area. I find it a little hard to understand that someone would put solar panels in a shaded patio area. I've never seen that, and kind of hard to believe that residents, that tenants would buy their own solar panels for their apartment. I just have never seen that.
We'll let
Yeah.
that person come up and go through it.
But we did take a look, and there's quite a bit of area that would be appropriate for solar panels on the building.
Okay. And one of my last questions, only because a previous project had to ultimately do a lot more digging. Are you, and again, you're going to say, yes, I know, but I'm asked the question anyway. Are you comfortable in terms of the fact that ultimately you're not going to need to do far more involved things digging-wise, caissons, something more substantive than what you have planned?
So the building design minimizes the grading, the export of dirt on the ground. That's why we kind of have that set up. So basically, we're digging in where the parking area is, and then the buildings kind of stagger up the hill. So it really minimizes that amount. Usually in areas like this, it's not uncommon to have thickened footings, caissons, those types of things. So once we get into the design, I wouldn't be surprised if we had all of the above in the review of the
My
project.
concern hopefully is to, and again, you can't obviously see the future, but we had one of those projects that ended up having that issue. So that's why I didn't know if you had kind of thought of that as
Yeah,
a potential.
we're not, kind of naive to understand that we won't have to go in and do something to make sure that the building is able to be built and, is appropriate in the design and, doesn't hamper or bother any of our neighbors.
Understood. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioners, anybody else have any questions? I have one that I ask everybody. Tell me what you're going to do for cyclists. Do you have bicycle corrals there?
Yeah, we do. We actually have bicycle racks outside the building, and we have inside bicycle storage, secured bicycle, not really parking, but secured areas for bikes.
Okay.
And those are all on the ground floor and easily accessible through the drive and into the structure.
Roughly how many bikes will be able to be accommodated?
Oh, gosh. I want to say that we had about 20,
That's great.
But-
And,
but I could be off of one or two on that.
okay.
Yeah. So we have our bicycle racks that are outside, and then inside, I think inside we've got 10, and outside as many as 8. Yeah. We have about 20, and we make sure we have 20.
Okay, thank you. And you have electric hookups for EV cars?
We do. That's a requirement, and so that's part of our design and part of our plan.
Anything for EV bikes?
We haven't really gone there yet, but I would imagine so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Once again, any other, Commissioner Link?
I just had a quick question. Frankly, because I've never seen it before and I have no idea what the answer is going to be, so my attorney friends would tell me never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. But is tandem accessible parking legal?
Sure, it is. It's allowed underneath the California State Density Bonus Law, too.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more questions
Great.
for right now.
Great, thank you.
We'll go on to, we have 2 public speakers. One is by Zoom, and that would be Doug Baker. If we can put Doug online, and if you can state your name and city of residence, I'd appreciate it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, my public comment is, my name's Doug Baker. I'm speaking as a resident of Thousand Oaks and of the VCMB housing group. My comment is for the Planning Commission to approve this proposed apartment complex at 170 Herbs Road with the requested concessions regarding the maximum height, the landscaping, and the setback limits. The reason being that this type of higher density infill is some of the most critical type of housing development that we need to address the ongoing housing crisis, both in our local area and California as a state. And it minimizes the impact on our local environment from the benefit of it being an infill and not a sprawl development. It doesn't eat away at our open spaces. The requested concessions to me look logical, and based on what we heard in the opening presentation, it seems that they were all deemed acceptable by the city staff. Hearing the comments from the applicant, the architecture group, this particular development looks very modern, electrified, solar panels, very eco-friendly. So to me, my comment, just to sum it up, is that this looks like a good proposal for the commission to approve. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for our speaker? Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have Patrick Nayland, and you have 5 minutes, and please state your name and city of residence. Yes. You have 5 minutes.
All right. I submitted a written communication and exhibits.
Could you go to the higher microphone so it's easier for us to hear you there? Thank you.
All right. I just want to make sure I've got this.
Yes.
Exhibit C should be Exhibit B, and Exhibit B should be Exhibit C.
Got
So
it here.
I messed up on that. But basically, I think I pretty well spelled out my feelings on exactly what's going on here.
I'm so sorry. Could you speak into the microphone?
All
We're
right,
trying
there.
to project it out to TV land and all that.
Is this
Thank you.
better?
Much better.
Okay, thank you. I think that I've had 3 days to review about 1,500 pages of documents, so I'm going to do my best to get to the heart of the matter, but it is a very complicated project. It's going to permanently affect the neighborhood because it depends on whether this project fits this lot. That's basically the bottom line. When I brought this property, the 20 units adjacent to it on the north side, I was led to believe that the adjoining parcel of property, which is this property, was going to be no more than 10 units. So here we are, morphed into a project that has become 30 units with setbacks of 5 feet. Just let me, in addition to what I've written, emphasize a few things. Number one, let's just talk about the trash chutes. The trash chutes are not 15 feet, 10 feet. They're 2 feet away from our apartments. And also the trash chutes are in the same area which are designated bulk items, which encroach on the fire access. I'm not going to go through every problem in this project, but that's just one of the items that should be further addressed. Another one is the parking. You have 30 units with 42 parking, no guest parking. There's no street parking. What happens if you have full occupancy and a guest? Where does that guest go? It goes to my parking spot in the adjoining building. In the parking, I don't see any handicap parking. I don't see any ADA compliance. Let's go to the setbacks for a second. How would you like to own a home where a car 10,000, 15,000 pounds is 2 feet away from your living space? I attached the picture of the house because if this project goes through and that driveway and retaining wall go up, the price of that property is zero. Who's going to want to own a home with a car 2 feet away from your garage, 2 feet away from, 10 feet, 15 feet away from your entry. Let's look at the other side of the property I own. This is not an usual situation. My property, 10 of the 20 units face a retaining wall which holds this property up. So for every height that has been approved in this property, 35 feet, 42 feet, whatever, you can add 10 to 15 feet on that. So the top of one of these buildings will look down not only to the grade of their property, but will also look down another 10 feet into the patios of 10 of my units. There will be absolutely no privacy, no sun, no cell phone reception. Basically, I look at it this way. This is a beautiful project, but it gives no room for its effect on either the single-family home or my building. There is not one mention in all this paperwork about whether it has an effect, whether it has an effect on my tenants, whether it has an effect on the value of our property, on the value of the single-family home. The developer, with all due respect, has taken a property that is probably maxed out at 20 units and turned it into, with every conceivable exception, use the density bonus laws to pack in as much as he can. And I think there should be some scaling back on this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions of this public speaker?
Thank you for your presentation. So I have a question. The YOLO units that are next to your property, what backs onto you there right now from that other apartment complex?
The YOLO project was a 2-acre parcel of property that backed up to my retaining wall. I went through many, many conversations with the developer and Adroit Construction, which was the actual builder of the project. Now, what they agreed to do in working with the city in my project, they came to me and said, hey, we're building this huge project, 43 units, 80,000 square feet on 2 acres. How can we protect your property? So we went back and forth, and it came down to how are you going to produce a property that has zero load on my retaining wall? And if you look at the Exhibit A, you can see that Exhibit A supports this property and supported the YOLO property. I have a 20-foot retaining wall on the back of my property, which now has 2 acres of dirt against it. What they came up with was a very unique structural design. Not unique, I should say, very expensive. It's a 20-foot down retaining wall with piles underneath it. In other words, you take a concrete pile with the retaining on it, and it produces around the property zero load on adjoining properties. And they also took out an enclosed garage and put in the barrier, sun barrier garages on the top. So basically, I had a working relationship with them, and it did not have any adverse impact on my property or my retaining walls. Now, I think I brought this up because, as the person before me said, it's a little premature to talk about structural. But in my experience, and I'm a builder myself, so when you start down the road of doing something like this, there is going to be problems. You're building a retaining wall. Would not be so problematic if levels of the properties were even. But since I'm down so far, 15 to 20 feet, the structural calculations may apply, but when you take setbacks and reduce them from 25 feet to 15 feet to 5 feet and try to rectify with a retaining wall, with 10,000, 15,000-pound cars going down them on both sides of the property, inevitably, it's going to break down. That's why you have setbacks. You have setbacks because the earth is the earth, and you don't want to mess with it. When you start cutting back to 5 feet, I don't care. Eventually, it's going to be a problem. The value of my property is going to go down. I have no doubt about it. The value of that other property is going to go down. I would like this to be scaled back. I would like it to be respectful in a sense of setbacks to my tenants, to the house on the side. I think the project is very attractive. I think the YOLO project is a beautiful project and enhances the neighborhood. I think this project scaled back would enhance the neighborhood, but the way it is right now, it's a detriment. As I said in my paper, I think it creates a dangerous condition and a public health hazard with respect to my tenants.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I have one. I had gone to the project property, and then we got your submission, and I went back and I walked onto your property, and I was trying to see from your perspective what the effect would be. My first question is, what is your setback from your building to the retaining wall?
15 feet.
Is it 15 feet? Okay. And I was unable to see any of those patios. I kind of peeked through some windows and I could see, it seems like the retaining wall is way up above the patios to begin with on your side.
That's correct. They average 15 feet.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if the people on your property are in their patio and they're already looking at a block wall, how is this other property going to affect their view?
You have to add, as I said before, you have to add the height of the retaining wall onto the height of the adjoining building. So whatever that is 47 feet, 57, I don't know. I don't know what I understand the question, but it's a hard one to gauge. All I know is that if this project is built, the height of the upper building is going to probably be 20 or 30 feet higher than the grade looking down into the retaining wall. So the point is that the objection is that when you have, for example, the gentleman indicated there was a solar study, a sun study. Well, that was on flat land. That doesn't apply to a situation where there's a drop of 10 to 15 feet on the edge of the property. So the sun is basically going to be blocked out because of this building.
Okay.
Because of the height of this building.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Kettlehut?
So you said that you like the project and you would be okay if it was scaled back. And yet you're indicating that the height is something that bothers you. If they were scaling it back, wouldn't the height be the same?
Yeah, but it would be, the setbacks would be at much higher, 15 to 25 feet, or whatever the code required. So in other words, if you raise the building from 25 feet to 42 feet, that's 17 feet. So I have to look out at a building that's not 25 feet, but that's 42 feet, that's 5 feet away from my property. I mean, it's why would I want to do that? Now, if it was 22 units with a normal setback and a normal height, I would have no objection to that, because that's what the code requires. That's what, let's say, the absence of density bonus would provide. But all of a sudden, we have this law, which the state passes, and we have to adopt it to the detriment of the neighborhood, the detriment of adjoining landowners. My point in this I don't want to say speech, but in my appraisal of the situation, is that there has to be some deference to adjoining properties when you start applying density bonus laws, accepting height restrictions. And this is one of those cases where I think that the density bonus laws really don't apply, because if you read the code carefully, it says, and I think it's cited in the paperwork here, if it's a public health, creates a public health, and if it's a dangerous condition, then the bonus laws don't apply. My position is that if I have a dumpster 2 feet away from a living space, that's a public hazard. That's going to create noxious fumes. It also interferes with the access by the fire department.
Oh, okay, thank you. I think what I'd like to do is ask our city attorney about how much we have to respect that density bonus.
Well, why don't my recommendation would be, if you have any more questions for him,
Okay, okay.
and then if there's other public speakers, I'm not sure how many public speakers we have, but assuming that's the last one, then we can go back to staff, and that'd be appropriate
Okay.
then.
Do we have any other questions for, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. We do not have any more public speakers. So at this time, maybe the staff has some comments to make?
I do. I just want to clarify a couple questions that you had. The driveway on the single-family side is as close as 3 feet. Commissioner Lanson, thank you for covering me there on the condition. Yes, that wall needs to be at least 42 inches high and no more than 8 feet as measured from the single-family dwelling unit side. Want to clarify that as the plans are proposed now, 9 bike spaces are provided and 2 are required by law, so quite a bit more than what's required. And I also just want to point out that condition number 98 does require a pre-construction meeting or pre-grading meeting with the neighbor. So I want to thank Patrick for being so communicative with me throughout this process as well, and voicing his concerns so that we could address them throughout the review process too. I do want to clarify that the bulky trash area is different from the trash chute area. So the bulky trash area is located next to the driveway, kind of more forward. That's just a paved area that's available if there happen to be bulky trash items. It's not used consistently, but that is different from the trash chute area, which is again enclosed inside the building. At one point, we did explore putting the trash chute area within the parking garage so that the setbacks would not be reduced. However, that would have reduced the amount of parking provided, which of course is at quite a premium on this site, as has been discussed. I'd like to reiterate that the driveway and the garage are below grade and below the neighboring property's grade. Just want to be clear that that's how, because this project is sited so much farther forward than the neighboring property's existing buildings, that's the relationship there. And I think that was all that I wanted to cover at this moment.
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Link?
Wanted to point out and hopefully save Mr. Bustle a trip down to the microphone there that condition number 41 talks about reinforcement of existing retaining walls and any kind of construction, well, actually take that back. Any kind of retaining walls must be reviewed, reinforcement of existing retaining walls. So I'm wondering out loud if perhaps maybe we might need to beef up that condition such that there's more teeth behind it, that any kind of excavation, removal of surcharge, I may not be saving you a trip down, I'm sorry, that any kind of excavation that removes surcharge away from the existing retaining walls on, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name, sir, Mr. Naylor, is that? Nailon, excuse me, so that any kind of construction activity that may disturb the surcharge perhaps needs to have review prior to or something along those lines, so that the integrity of the retaining wall that is currently holding up the soil that is on the subject property, the project property, is not going to compromise his end of it.
So I'm in Public Works. I'm not sure that we really need any more language to that or not, because before we can issue a grading permit for this project, we're going to have a soils report, and we're going to have a structural report on that wall. So before we issue any kind of permit to do any kind of rough grading out there, it's going to have to be analyzed, and all that's going to have to be determined through a report from the structural engineer and also from the soils engineer. And we're also, in this case, we're going to be having our building official look at this wall too, to make sure that there is no problems with this wall before any grading occurs.
And if I may, Chair, to add to Mr. Bussel's comment, for all projects that we have, you name it, we require, in this kind of case, a soils engineer, a structural engineer, and staff is going to, before they issue the building permit, it's mandated that they establish through their own engineering certification, right? So we are relying upon their experts to ensure that these walls, for example, are being constructed and engineered appropriately, right? So they actually have to sign off, their engineers have to actually sign off, and that's the applicant kind of led to that a little bit, or alluded to it, excuse me, that's exactly what they have to do. And we talk about the easements that were discussed tonight, and they have to move those easements a little bit, and so that has to be addressed. They're doing the undergrounding. Again, another factor that has to be addressed, and where are you putting the line to go into it for the undergrounding. Again, all these things are standard issues that we have, and again, we require their experts to certify that these meet the requirements under the building code that's applicable at the time. So again, for that public safety issue, that is something that's always going to be, and I will tell you that the city takes any type of grading, especially on slopes, very seriously. That's why we require something that goes into a 25% slope or greater. We have it go to the Planning Commission exactly for that purpose. It's just to make sure that we are making sure that is analyzed before a decision is made. So let me jump off of that to some other items, because we heard a number of things tonight from both the applicant and from the two public comments, and I want to first emphasize I appreciate the comments that we receive, both in this case for and against the project as presented. But let's talk about the density bonus law. First of all, it definitely applies in this case, and one of the things that the state has done, and I understand the public comment about he doesn't agree with the state density bonus law or doesn't think it should be applied in this kind of case. I want to emphatically say it does apply to, it allows the concessions, and this person, the project applicant is asking for 2 concessions, and one of them is that side yard setback. As exactly allowed under the density bonus law, and the height is the second one, right? So when you think about this project, you have to go up a little bit. It's a tight parcel, and you have to have some kind of concession or request for concession to allow this to be built, and the engineering to allow those density, those affordable units to be built. And those are the 2 that they have requested. And for those 2, the only, again, it's very difficult, but the only way that the city can deny those things would be to establish a public safety issue. And it's not just something about, you have to establish it, and you have to establish it, not only do you have to establish it, but you have to establish it by preponderance of the evidence. And they changed that code requirement from substantial evidence, which would mean that if we have substantial evidence to support a position, that's good, to preponderance, in which you have both sides arguing back and forth, does it apply or not apply? And the answer would be we have to establish that. So again, it's important to note that for these 2 concessions, they are absolutely permitted under the density bonus law. And again, this is the state mandated request. The reason why they established that is to get more affordable housing. And so when you do the density bonus, which is you're adding 5 in this case, 5 low units, he goes through the calculation, he gets these additional units, 1 and 2, he gets the 2 concessions that he's asked for. So I want to be very clear about that. So one, to demonstrate that to lay a foundation to deny, we'd have to have a very thorough discussion about what, again, it would be up to you to find those make those findings of what a dangerous condition to public safety would be. And I haven't heard anything just so far tonight that would establish that, but that would be something that's a very serious thing to say no to the density bonus law for that reason. You really have to lay a foundation for it. And that would be something we'd have to do extensively tonight if you were to go that route. We talked a lot about solar, and you heard, and I know that you all received, it came in late this afternoon, but we received the individuals who is opposing this project, his comments and his written comments. And I want to be clear about the solar arrays. Civil Code Section 714 and 714.5 or 1, that actually has to do with, and we've had this before in cases, that has to do with the inability for anyone to create a contract or an instrument that prohibits solar installation. That's what that Civil Code section is about. And you've seen it now so any contract that would prohibit solar is now unenforceable, right? It's voided under state law. And now you've seen that enhanced to ADUs, for example, where you cannot have an HOA that says we're not going to allow ADUs because there's a mandate by the state saying it's a state mandated concern, and therefore the cities cannot do that. But there is other, he mentions in this document some other concepts of solar easements, and that's actually under Civil Code Section 801, I think, and 802 or 802.1. And I bring that up because to establish a solar easement, normally there's a written document, and it's something that's negotiated between parties, and you would have to actually create the dimensions of what that easement would look like. And we don't have those factors here. I just want to tell you very clearly, we don't have those factors here. So the solar shade has to do with trees, and so that's another section where the solar shade can come in, and that has to do with trees being created or being planted after a building has solar, and that could impact the solar after a period of time. And again, it can only impact it during a period of time during the day, in fact. So again, I respect that these comments were made about the solar, but I want to be clear from my review of this, the solar panel issue is really not something that has been established from the factors that have been laid out in this case. And so to me, that is something that, just based on the information we have at this time, and that was presented, there's no indication that this project should be considered denied because of an impact on solar to any neighboring property. I think Ms. I'm just going over my notes really quick. Also very important to note, and I believe Ms. Kendall mentioned it already, we always have a review from the fire department, right, to ensure that there's fire access. And I think it was Mr. Link actually that mentioned that there is a review by the fire department. They have looked at this, and they have looked at the access road, including the easements that have been proposed for this property, and they have already signed off that this, as planned, right, as the site plans have been prepared, they are okay with this project with the conditions that have been attached to the resolution. And if you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them as best I can, but that's it for now.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Heer or the rest of the staff? Okay, thank you. The applicant now has a 5-minute rebuttal time, if you guys would like to come up and speak.
Thank you for the opportunity to come back. We have no problem with the 18 or 20 bicycle parking spaces, so that we have room for them. As was mentioned, the trash doesn't block the area of the exiting of the driveway. It's a separate designated area. We do have ADA parking spaces. We're required to have ADA parking spaces, and everything is ADA compliant as far as access, or otherwise we don't get a building permit. We don't have any problem with the retaining walls. We'll kind of work that out when we get into the field. If we're off a couple inches here or there, that's something that we'll work with staff and with the inspectors on to make sure that we provide the intent of the screening, the 42 inches, the landscape screen. So we're perfectly fine with that. And as was mentioned, our driveway exits are below the wall areas. They're not above the wall, they're below the wall. So as far as weights and pressures and things like that, it just doesn't exist because it's below the wall. And that was by design. Like I said, we don't want to go in and take tons of dirt out of the property. We want to be able to kind of fit in and do that tiered stacking relationship. So, anyway, I think that's basically it. So unless there's any other questions, we thank you very much for considering our project.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, thanks so much. If there are no other questions, I'm going to close the public meeting, and I will now open up the floor for discussion and/or a motion. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair. It's funny, I remember years ago, we were presented with a project up the street, which I think the Acorn labeled a Sophie's Choice, which I thought was an overstatement at the time. But it was a potential project where there was a 12-unit project that the developer either said, I'll make 3 stories and leave a tree, or 2 stories and cut the tree. And I feel like we're back at that, because this is a very difficult process, because by helping some parts of this process, we obviously create impediments to others. So there is no perfect answer at this point. Mr. Nail, I did listen to all of your points. I do understand your position. The difficult thing is you kind of cited yourself the very issue that we're dealing with. Things have changed since you bought the property that you're on. And there are certain laws that now are in effect that were not in effect in that time. And we are subject to those. And it's not something that we can necessarily just dispense with necessarily. So we have to evaluate the whole entire project, understanding the density law. And by the way, not just that law, there's other laws that we're now forced to kind of go with, objective standards, but everything else we kind of go into this. So we can't subjectively say, I don't like that, or I wish it looked different, or I wish you had a different color. In fact, it's funny, I think one of my first commission meetings, we got into a big discussion of green or cream as a color for something, which we can't do anymore. So my evaluation, again, that's why I asked the question of Ms. Kendall, is why are we here, is to understand exactly what our job is. We are not legislators. At the end of the day, we are enforcing our rules and regulations. And if we have discretion, applying that within the code and the confines of what job we've been given. Looking at the project, yes, there is a lot to it. I would say to the applicant, it is a very pretty project. Thank you very much for doing a great job, and again, for wanting to invest in our city. It does have a lot of things that I think make it attractive, and it sounds like you didn't ask for too many other variances above and beyond that which you're trying to get through the state density bonus process. I did go through, Mr. Nail, on your list of things and trying to understand if there's any evidence to support some of those arguments. As Mr. Heer pointed out, the public safety issue as to the density bonus is the most important. I did not find, by virtue of your comments and some of the pictures alone, that to be sufficient evidence of demonstrating by what's called a preponderance, which is more likely than not, so to speak, that there would be a public nuisance. In fact, if we found, in my opinion, a public nuisance in this situation, we may not be able to approve any development throughout the entire city because of the same circumstances that would exist for almost every project that comes before us in that regard. The solar panel issue, I don't fully necessarily think is described sufficiently in terms of trying to understand exactly if it was the code sections you're indicating or if it was somehow a decrease in the effectiveness of the panels. I don't know exactly what that argument is, but I didn't see from the trajectory that the building necessarily would affect or cause problems to those panels if they existed at that location. Again, what you say in terms of changing the view is an issue. California, there's no right to a view unless there's an HOA or a law. I'm not aware of any law that would give anybody a right to a view in that regard, and nothing that I'm familiar with in the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. So looking at all of that, I think that at the end of the day, within the confines of our discretion, this project does meet all of the necessary rules, regulations, codes, density bonus requirements. So I'm going to find the thing to start reading a very long discussion or title, I have a feeling. And let me get to it. Of course, the one time I need to get to that, it's not there.
Page 2 of the staff report.
Yeah, it's just got to get to the staff report. Lori was very nice to pull it up for us, but unfortunately, I hit too many buttons. All right, so I'm going to move that we, Planning Commission adopt resolution based on the findings and subject to the conditions contained therein to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA guidelines pursuant to Class 32, Sections 15332, and Class 5, Section 15305, and to approve 2021-70328-RPD and PM-2023-70002.
Thank you. Do we have any comments? Commissioner?
Just a quick question for clarity. I'm assuming that includes the findings and conditions as amended by staff?
Yes, including those as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. I share Mr. Nayland's pain with respect to this particular project. But I am going to support the motion for the very reasons that Commissioner Lanson has specified. As Mr. Nayland points out in his letter to us, the building was built in 1984. At the time, the property that we're talking about here, his building was built in 1984. The properties we're talking about here were zoned 10 units per acre. So he clarified, hey, my understanding was it was only supposed to be 10 units. That's correct, it was. Back in then the 1980s, they changed the general plan to be high-density residential, and it turns out the Planning Commission actually recommended it to be 15, which is the lowest it could be and still be consistent with the general plan. Went to the City Council, they approved it to 20, and that's why it's 20. So laws change and the designations change, and now 35 years later, after those things have happened, Sacramento has said, you have less discretion than you used to have. I have sit on this commission. We did used to have some discretion. I don't know what the details of the Sophie's Choice case was, but they might have said two-story building and keep the tree, as opposed to pick one. I don't know, but I do know that we have less ability to do that now based upon the new laws for which we need to stay compliant. If we don't look to find a project that we do believe to be compliant, we'll have one forced upon us, and it'll be worse for the community. Mr. Nayland specifies clearly if his understanding was 10 units, this project as designed with the net acreage of 0.709 and 30 units on it is 42.38 units per net acre. It's a dense project. It is larger than we've wanted to have on our general plan, but state law is putting some constraints on us. I don't like it, but given the circumstances and evidence before us, I feel compelled to vote for it, so I'll support the motion.
Commissioner Link?
I don't mean to beat a dead horse in this situation, but I think actually Commissioner Ferris is being generous when he says that the state has put constraints on us. The state has, in effect, tied our hands. Unless we can make a finding that there is a severe detriment to health and safety, these projects that include affordable housing are, in essence, by right. So these projects go forward regardless. Now, actually, this isn't the last stop for this project, is my understanding, because we're making a recommendation to City Council. So our chair will make an announcement later that says that any aggrieved party, there is no period for, what have you. But anyway, yeah, the City Council will ultimately make the final decision on this project. But I hate to say, but our hands are tied. The project does have a lot going for it. There are guest parking spaces, which is above and beyond what they are required to provide, because again, the state has hamstrung us in that effect that they could make 0 guest parking spaces. But they have chosen to at least throw us a bone in that regard. It is a beautiful project, but again, is it a dense project? Absolutely. I do find that there are a sufficient number of safety nets with regard to the retaining wall that I think that staff will do a good job once the soils report, the geotech report, and structural report come back, that everything in that regard will be protected for you. So that, I mean, again, if this developer happens to damage your wall, he's going to pay for it. One way or another, but I mean, again, there's some safeguards in that regard, but is it a difficult project? Absolutely, 100%. I totally feel for you, but they're behind our back at this point, so I will support the motion.
If I may make a clarification, Chair, and just, I apologize, Mr. Link, but this case actually is one that's can be decided by Planning Commission. We've had a number of ones that have been referrals lately, so I understand, recommendations, I should say. But in this case, actually, it's one in which your decision tonight will be binding unless it is appealed within the 10 days, which that the chair should make that announcement at the end of this process.
Excuse me, I thought I had read something about a recommendation to City Council. My apologies.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Commissioner Kettelhut?
I just want to amplify pretty much what everybody else has said, that, yeah, and I appreciate the city attorney's analysis, because, again, we can't engage in conjecture. We have to stick to the four corners of the document and facts, and the facts are the facts, and it is a lovely project, and I thank you for presenting it to us, and I will support the motion.
Thank you. At this point, will the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettelhut?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your input. Next, we have item 8A, a department report on the draft general plan 2045 overview. And I just want to make it clear to everybody that this is just a report. There's no vote being taken, except maybe to accept the report. So this is just informational for us as a commission and for the public. And so presenting on behalf of staff is Senior Planner Kristen Rice. Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You just took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the community that are here or watching tonight. I would like to start off with what the purpose is of tonight's presentation, although those words have just been stolen from me. So with that.
I'm so sorry. I take them back, okay.
Little bit of a repeat, but the purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide an overview of the draft general plan, including the structure and its contents. We'll be providing a brief overview of each chapter, the appendices, and the supplemental. We'll explain how the community can provide feedback, and we'll also talk about what we've heard so far, and along with the next steps going forward. Before we get into the overview of the draft general plan, I did want to make some initial remarks and remind everyone about what the general plan is and what's required and where we are in the process going forward. There we go. As a reminder, a general plan is a long-term policy document that guides the future actions of the city through a series of goals and policies and actions. The general plan establishes a long-term vision for the city. It is not about what happens tomorrow or next year. It's really about how we think about how the community will grow over the next 25 years. The general plan is about preserving and enhancing the community's strengths, of which there are many in Thousand Oaks, including its open spaces, parks, schools, and family-friendly neighborhoods, but it's also about addressing the topics of concern, such as environmental sustainability, diversity of housing, and climate resilience. Ultimately, it's an opportunity for the community to come together to develop a shared vision for the future. California Government Code Section 65300 requires every city and county to adopt a comprehensive long-term general plan and sets forth requirements that a local agency must meet. General plans must include at a minimum the following mandatory elements: land use, circulation, otherwise known as mobility for this general plan, housing, conservation, open space, noise, and safety, and environmental justice, which in this general plan is addressed throughout all chapters. For some cities, specifically in the San Joaquin area of the state, air quality is also required. Other topics included in this general plan are community design, equity and resilient communities, healthy communities, economic development, climate change, and arts and culture. So where do we fit now in the overall process? We are in the final phase of a 5-step process, which started in the summer of 2019. We have concluded our existing conditions analysis, which focused on assessing the current conditions and policies of the city to gain an understanding of the city's issues, community assets, and future opportunities and trends. We then finished the process of listening and visioning with the community, and input was gathered through multiple activities, including but not limited to workshops, committee meetings, stakeholder interviews, and focus groups, which informed the development of the vision statement and the guiding principles. The process slowed down a bit for the third phase, which is policy development and plan alternatives, due to the COVID pandemic. In this phase, topic-specific meetings beginning in December 2019 through the end of 2020 were held to provide high-level direction on goals and policies for inclusion in the elements of the general plan. This phase also involved a series of community meetings from January 2021 to May 2021 to evaluate 3 land use map alternatives. Community input on the alternatives helped produce a new preferred land use map, which was endorsed by City Council on May 25th, 2021. We also finished phase 4, called Plan Development, with the preparation of the draft general plan, which was drafted to reflect the information obtained from the community throughout the process, along with statutory requirements. This phase also involved the preparation of the draft EIR. The general plan update has now reached an important milestone with the release of the draft general plan for public review and is in the 5th final phase. This phase will also include release of the draft environmental impact report for public review. It will include community workshops to solicit feedback, City Council and Planning Commission study sessions, and public hearings. The final product will be the final general plan and final EIR. The community was reached using a variety of methods at more than 90 outreach events and activities. At the beginning of the process, a project website was created at tox2045.org. Citywide mailer was sent out to households via the water and wastewater bills. The general plan email distribution list currently has more than 1,500 subscribers, and information and updates about the general plan is shared regularly through this email distribution list and multiple newsletters, including the city's monthly City Scene, the economic development and sustainability newsletters. Hundreds of emails were sent out to various organizations requesting their involvement, and numerous advertisements and flyers have been used throughout the process. A variety of engagement activities were conducted, and engagement was intentionally inclusive of the diversity of the persons and groups that make up the city's population, including new and longtime residents, seniors, youth, businesses, and neighborhood groups. These activities included 16 General Plan Advisory Committee meetings, 4 community workshops, 4 online surveys, 21 neighborhood meetings, multiple pop-up workshops throughout the community held at different events, 17 stakeholder interviews, and several focus groups, 2 community forums, 4 office hour sections, which were used during the COVID pandemic. They were online Zoom sessions where the community could do Q&A with staff and the consultant team. And we've also had 6 updates to City Council throughout the process and 4 with Planning Commission. And with that, we will now get into the overview of the draft general plan. The general plan is organized into 14 chapters, which begins with the introduction. This chapter outlines the regulatory requirements of the general plan, provides background information about Thousand Oaks. It describes the organization of the general plan and provides information on how to use it. The second chapter of the plan describes the process which led to the development of the draft general plan. And the third chapter is vision and guiding principles. Chapter 4 and 5 are land use and mobility. 6 and 7 are parks and open space and conservation, followed by community facilities and services, which is a newer element, along with arts and culture. And then we have safety, noise, and governance and implementation are new as well, followed by a glossary. Other components of the general plan include the housing element, which is a chapter of the general plan, but it is prepared separately due to state requirements. 2 appendices are included for public health and equity and emergency evacuation analysis. There is also an engagement summary and reference material document that is not technically part of the general plan, but it is provided for reference. Each chapter begins with a brief overview of the contents, followed by a summary of the state requirements. Some chapters provide background information summarizing existing conditions in the city, followed by a list of key issues and opportunities, which were developed in combination of the public engagement and existing data to inform the overall direction identified in the goals and policies. Each chapter concludes with goals and policies that direct action by the city to implement the vision and follow the guiding principles of the city. Goals are the overarching statement that describes an overall vision and direction for the community. They are broad in both purpose and aim and are designed to establish the directions and outcomes. Policies are specific position statements that support the achievement of goals and serve as guides to the city. These policies seek to achieve the goals by encouraging certain behaviors. So to remain flexible in the future, language is purposely used to describe this intent using verbs like encourage, attract, and promote. There are 2 topics addressed throughout the general plan elements. These are very important topics. These include environmental justice and sustainability. California law mandates that jurisdictions currently updating 2 or more elements of their general plan identify disadvantaged communities, promote engagement of disadvantaged community stakeholders in the public decision-making process, and integrate environmental justice policies throughout the general plan to help identify and reduce risks by prioritizing improvements and in programs in communities that are disproportionately affected by environmental hazards. So policies related to health, equity, environmental justice are marked throughout this plan with the orangish red heart plus the cross. And then in terms of sustainability, the city has a long-standing reputation as an environmental leader due to its many programs aimed at reducing waste, energy consumption, and water usage that address topics of concern such as climate change. Advancement of environmental sustainability remains important to this community and thus is integrated into policies across each chapter, and they are marked by the green oak tree leaf. Chapter 3 describes the driving factors and reoccurring themes found throughout the general plan. It includes a vision statement and guiding principles, which are composed of community values and major strategies. The city of Thousand Oaks has been recognized and is committed to being one of the most desirable places in all California to live, work, recreate, and raise a family, which is represented by this vision statement and which helps the city to focus on what's really important for the future. So with that, I'll just really quickly read the vision statement because it's a little long. Thousand Oaks, surrounded by a ring of open space and varieties of mature native oak trees, is a tight-knit community where people of all ages, stages of life, and backgrounds can thrive in a suburban, family-friendly environment. Its high quality of life is supported by award-winning public schools and services, extensive parks and recreation offerings, world-renowned arts and culture facilities and programs, and biotech and emerging technology businesses. Residents and visitors value the safe, welcoming, family-friendly atmosphere. And with that, getting into the community values, which is the first part of the guiding principles. A good general plan is based on a community's values and incorporates diverse input from its people, businesses, organizations, and community groups. Throughout this general plan update process, community input was sought during several phases of the engagement process. The following list is a result of the engagement process and represents what the community has defined as characteristic values of the Thousand Oaks community. The following values are embedded throughout this general plan. I will also note that they are in no particular order. So it includes family-friendly community, inclusive and welcoming community, high-quality parks and the protection of open spaces, a suburban community and the ability to be able to live in the city regardless of income, stage of life, recognizing that the community will change and evolve over time, providing safe and convenient mobility options. It includes a diverse and resilient economy and high-quality schools, a continued devotion to arts and culture, a safe and healthy community, and a city that recognizes its role as a leader in the region and a leader in climate change and environmental sustainability, and to continue to have an active and involved community. To successfully implement the vision and uphold the community's values, the general plan includes a series of strategies to be implemented over the next several decades. These strategies serve as a guidepost for the development and refinement of the goals, policies, and actions across this general plan, and are included as part of a vision map in Chapter 3. So these are just a few of the strategies that are highlighted here, which include offering a diversity of housing along the 101 corridor, focusing on the employment center and expanding jobs along Rancho Conejo, preserving existing neighborhoods and creating a new downtown core, and revitalizing opportunity areas are just a few. Additional major strategies include preserving and expanding the existing urban forest, especially related to oak trees, expanding the number and types of entertainment options, expanding the high quality, diversity, and accessibility of public facilities and services, and taking steps to protect the city against future natural or human-caused disasters. They also include to meet or exceed state-established targets for greenhouse gas emissions, energy use, water use, and recycling, and to continue to maintain long-term fiscal sustainability. So with that, I'll get into Chapter 4, which is the land use element. This is the element that describes the distinct types of places that make up the community's vision for the built environment. It's intended to accommodate and plan for necessary change in that we need to comply with the existing and new state regulations, but it's also meant to preserve and enhance the unique features that attribute to the high quality of life in Thousand Oaks. One component of the land use element are the land use designations. These describe the intended future use of every parcel of land in the city. And there are 17 designations included within 5, actually we changed it to 6 here, but 17 designations in different categories. These designations include a description, a list of allowable uses, the density and intensity, along with allowable building height, and illustrative examples for scale and character. There are 9 residential land use designations, 1 mixed use, 3 commercial, 2 industrial, 1 institutional, and parks, golf courses, and open space. And here is a photograph of the general plan land use designation map. This was the map that was endorsed by City Council on May 25th, 2021, although we have added the land use designations here for the county islands as promised during the City Council meeting. The land use element includes a variety of goals, and the first section is the citywide land use goals. They provide opportunities for targeted infill development to preserve existing residential neighborhoods, support and promote housing diversity, enhance the job base, and redevelop underperforming commercial and retail areas, support high-quality design in public spaces, preserve views and vistas, power buildings with clean energy, and promote healthy living. The next section of the land use element dives a little bit deeper into area-specific guidance. There are specific goals and policies related to areas within the city, including the downtown, Thousand Oaks Boulevard, the Oaks, Moore Park Road and Jan's Marketplace, Rancho Conejo North and South, Westlake and East End Village, and the mixed-use village centers. Moving on to Chapter 5, this is mobility. The mobility element primarily describes the citywide multimodal transportation system, including the functional roadway classification system and the pedestrian, bicycle, and public transit networks. The main goals included in the mobility element are to maintain a transportation system that supports all users, support public transit, support active and safe transportation, manage infrastructure improvements, and to reduce impacts to the environment. Quickly moving on to Chapter 6, which is Parks and Open Space. This element provides an overview of the city's open space, parks, and recreation systems. It describes the inventory and benefits of parks and open space and includes goals that involve the preservation of open space, continued support for the ring of green surrounding the city, protecting natural areas, encouraging outdoor recreation and education, manage open space areas to address natural hazards, maintain beautiful parks, and provide a diversity of recreation programs, and to also expand park funding to keep pace with the growth of the community. Chapter 7 is conservation, which addresses identification, conservation, and use of natural resources. Some of the topics included in this element include scenic resources, community forest, biological resources, and cultural and historic resources. And the goals included in this element, which are to mitigate visual impacts of new development on hillsides, maintain and expand the community forest, and also protect the oak trees and landmark trees, protect and manage natural areas, wildlife populations, and also to maintain air quality that protects public health, safety, and welfare. Chapter 8, this is a new chapter of the general plan. It describes the condition, accessibility, and level of service for facilities and public facilities within the city. So this predominantly includes city facilities and buildings, public services, infrastructure, which are related to stormwater and wastewater and solid waste, along with public safety, which includes police and fire information. Goals that are included within this chapter are to ensure a sustainable water supply and conserve water use, reduce solid waste, achieve surface and groundwater quality standards, ensure police and fire protection, provide high quality and well-maintained public buildings and services, and to provide additional services for the library, and ensure access to quality health and mental health care. Moving on to Chapter 9, which is arts and culture. This also, as well, is a new chapter for the city's general plan. It describes the citywide arts and culture system to support and enhance the city's vibrant cultural environment, and it includes goals that support the arts and the economic development. goals about the Civic Arts Plaza and cultural affairs, the creation of resident cultural and creative experiences and programs, and to support city arts and cultural leadership and also future funding. Chapter 10 is the safety element. This element addresses natural and human-induced hazards and building resilience against climate change risks in the future. It includes goals and policies to protect people, property, and the natural environment related to seismic hazards, flooding, and wildfires, and climate change, terrorism, and disease, of all things, which I think we maybe in years past didn't think that that was important until the last few years. And it turns out it is. So the goals included in this chapter are to minimize impacts of earthquakes, floods, and hazardous materials, provide prevention services to address wildfires, emergency evacuation, fuel reduction and emergency response, and also to reduce vulnerability to climate change, threats, energy demand, GHG, and to protect life and property from terrorism and pandemics. Chapter 11 is noise, which describes the noise conditions in the city. This chapter covers the noise standards and current and projected noise levels, along with the inclusion of goals to promote land use compatibility and minimize transportation noise-related impacts. Moving on to governance, this also is a new chapter for the general plan. This describes the city's system of governance to continue being a properly functioning, responsive, and participatory government, and includes goals related to continued and transparency, community engagement, racial and economic equity, fiscal sustainability, and also maintaining our strong partnerships with agencies. We're almost there. Chapter 13 is implementation, which I have notes, which describes the actions that are generally one-time actions needed to execute the goals and the policies within the general plan. These actions are presented and organized by the relevant chapter of the general plan, and each implementation action includes the name of the action, a brief description of it, the goal of the element that it implements, the time frame, and the city departments or divisions that will be involved in its implementation. Timeframes for the actions are projected to occur by short, medium, and long, which correspond to a specific number of years. The implementation actions are intended to be updated more frequently than the rest of the general plan, adding or modifying actions due to changing social, economic, and environmental conditions, as well as changes in funding and departmental priorities. 2 appendices are included in the general plan. These include Appendix A for public health and equity, which provides background data and information as it relates to environmental justice. The second Appendix B is emergency evacuation analysis, which provides an analysis of evacuation routes in the event of a natural or man-made disaster. The engagement summary and reference material document is also provided, which includes a summary of the engagement and outreach activities and the input that was received. And finally, the housing element is technically a chapter within the general plan, but as I mentioned previously, it is prepared separately because the state requires it to be updated more frequently than the remainder of the general plan. We are currently working with the state right now to receive conditional approval in the coming months so that the housing element will be able to be readopted with the remainder of the general plan at the hearings later this year. Over the next couple months, there will be ample opportunity for the community to ask questions, discuss the draft goals and policies, and make informed comments and recommendations. To submit comments on the draft general plan, an online comment form is provided on the project website at tox2045.org/draft general plan. We are using a software program called JotForm that allows us to organize all the comments efficiently on the back end. You must put in your name, and email is optional. However, I do want to mention that if anyone would like receipt of their comments, you should put your email in and you will receive a comment. You will receive your comments in writing. Comments must be submitted separately, and you can choose to provide a general comment or a comment by chapter of the general plan, or provide specific comments on each goal, policy, or implementation action, and the form may be completed as many times as needed. Following the close of the comment period in mid-September, a matrix of all the comments will be prepared with staff recommendations for each comment, and that matrix will be presented to Planning Commission and City Council for consideration on what changes should be made. And with that, I will get into some of the opportunities that we've had so far. For feedback, the draft general plan was released on June 2nd, and since then we've had 2 informational tables at local events in the community. One was for the Pop-Up Arts and Music Festival, and the second one was for Conejo Valley Days. We also reconvened the General Plan Advisory Committee here at City Hall on June, I believe that was actually June 28th, but, and we had a public workshop on June 29th. And then we have also, through the online comment form, so far we've received a little over 30 and almost 40 comments to date. So this is just a summary of the overarching themes of the comments that we've heard so far at the different events and through the online comment form. Overall, we've heard that there is support and there is appreciation for the work that's been done and for the draft general plan that's been prepared. We have heard concerns about the land use designation for the Orchard property. We have received some comments related to senior housing at mobile home parks. There has been support for the active transportation topics and goals provided in the plan, and there has been appreciation for the preservation of open space. We have heard support for an increase in, we have received support for an increase in biotechnology and other industries, and we've also heard concerns about parking and traffic congestion. And we've also received comments requesting a more variety of housing types. So with that, I will go to the next steps. One of the next steps, which will be forthcoming, is the Environmental Impact Report. The California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, requires cities and counties to study potential environmental impacts as part of the general plan update process, and where those impacts may be significant, an EIR must be prepared. For new general plans, programmatic EIRs are prepared, which evaluates a plan that has multiple components that are related either geographically or as logical parts of a long-term plan. A programmatic EIR looks at the broad policies of a general plan and does not address potential specific site impacts that may fall within the plan. When a new general plan is being considered, the EIR must evaluate the potential impacts of growth anticipated by the general plan compared to the existing physical environment. Staff is currently reviewing the administrative draft EIR that was prepared by Rincon Consultants. Anticipates that the public draft will be released for a 45-day public review period in early August. The next steps for this process, as I mentioned, we're anticipating release of the public draft EIR in early August. It will be released for a 45-day public review period. During this time, the general plan will still be available for review and comment. Therefore, the public will be able to review both documents at the same time, and the review periods for both documents will close on the same day. At the end of that 45-day review period, which will be in mid-September. Between mid-September through the end of October, we will be preparing responses to comments, and we'll be putting the comments in a matrix for the general plan. And then in the end of October, the final EIR and general plan will be released. The Planning Commission and City Council hearings to consider adoption of the general plan and certification of the EIR would start in beginning in mid-November through early December, although those exact dates yet have not been determined. So that finishes my presentation for this evening on an overall draft of the general plan. I see some big eyes right now. I know that was a lot of information. But I am here along with the senior planner, Ian Holt. We are available to answer questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Commissioner Link, you're first.
It's because she looked left instead of right. Sorry, Don. I actually just had a couple of comments and then maybe a question or two. As far as the mobility, near and dear to my heart, is concerned, I actually found it a little difficult on the roadway or the functional classification exhibit to tell which was which. The red and the orange kind of blended together. So I don't know if there's a way to differentiate those a little bit better that might be more helpful to the public in reviewing the document. As far as questions go, has the city decided that we're no longer going to pursue level of service as a goal within the general plan?
As part of the EIR, the analysis will be conducted via VMT.
VMT. So SB 743 Government Code 66006, whatever it might be, does not preclude the city from using level of service or adopting a level of service standard as part of the general plan. So we are not going to pursue a level of service standard.
I'm sorry. Can you? No, I can't listen to you and him at the same time.
So just
I think, Commissioner Link, I think what you're asking is whether the city is going to retain a level of service policy.
Correct.
Currently, that is not proposed within the general plan, so that any existing policy that the city had would be replaced by a VMT policy.
VMT, okay. So that probably means I don't have any traffic studies to read anymore. Might not be a bad
VMT
thing,
analysis you can evaluate.
Let's see. I just had a random question on page 198, which is the existing seismic faults. Is it safe to assume that we have no active seismic faults in the city? Because the key said that everything was inactive. Crossing my fingers that answer to that question is yes, but that doesn't mean that they're dormant or extinct either. So I just ran
Correct. They are inactive.
All of them are inactive. Okay, good to know. I'm not going to touch the Borcher property with a 10-foot pole, but I did actually think that there might have been one glaring omission as part of the acknowledgments page. I noticed that we did reference a former member on one of the locations. Is it possible to add Commissioner Buss as a former member of the Planning Commission, as we did decide quite a few of these items within the general plan during his tenure?
I'm sorry, to be clear, you said that we mentioned a former member?
No, well, we had a former member as part of the, I'm going to throw Commissioner Ferris under the bus, but we had him noted as a former member, and then we had him under the Planning Commission under acknowledgements, but we don't acknowledge Commissioner Buss's contributions to the general plan process as a former member of the Planning Commission. So I don't know if that's something we can do.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, we'll look into it.
And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair. It's funny, I'm looking at this and realizing about 5 years ago, Chair McMahon and Mr. Parker and a few of us went on a commissioner retreat, at which point the general plan update was first discussed. I thought, that's not going to be that big a deal. 5 years later, we are getting to, what, mile 23, mile 22? of the process. And it's amazing because you say look forward. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this plan is not going to apply just to my grandkids, but my great-grandkids, to the extent we actually can do this process that will last long enough to make sense. So I want to thank everybody that involved in this. This has been a Herculean effort, that's a hard word to say, in terms of just the amount, and it's like almost making a movie. You're making a movie while you're writing another movie at the same time, trying to make sure you're keeping both straight. But one thing I did have a question about that didn't come out before is, we've planned, obviously, as part of the zoning thing, if it goes through, a lot of units over time. RHNA obviously changes over time, but how long do we think this might take us towards satisfying RHNA units, if there's any kind of estimate?
I'm not quite sure that I understand your question, but I would
So-
say that through the extent of this general plan to 2045, that would include 3 RHNA allocations.
And based on past RHNA allocations, that would cover us through at least that number, hopefully?
That was the plan as we were going forward with the general plan.
And that's an amazing thing in terms of not having to go through that process again. But I want to say thank you for everybody's effort in this process. And again, I look forward to getting it in November, you say, December? It's a long time. That's why I got big eyes. I'm like, my gosh, really? It's another 5 months, huh? Okay. Anyway, thank you.
Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Thank you for the great presentation and for all the work you've done with the GPAC and everything to help get us here. As Commissioner Link has stated, I get 2 nods apparently in the acknowledgements because I was a member of the General Plan Advisory Committee and then now serving on the commission. I'll take them, but yes, I think Commissioner Buss should get a nod for his participation during the process too, if possible. My main comments, and I want to find out if there's a way that we can, I want to try to make sure that the public has all the information they can, that they understand the impacts and benefits of the new general plan leading into the comment section, and also to provide my understanding of some things I think need to be included in here as we start for understanding and evaluation later in the year. I did provide a question and a comment. We have I'm looking at this attachment, 506-page supplemental engagement and reference material, which is just genuinely helpful, I think, for people to be able to see how the community has engaged, what the comments have been through this process, and something that helps people understand how they've received the general plan. There is an additional set of commentary that came in parallel to the General Plan Advisory Committee, which were the alternative, what was it, the land
Use alternatives briefing book
that had the alternatives in them. They were the basis for which people looked at and then responded to the survey. But in that document, people were actually able to attach a comment and leave something very specific. There are hundreds upon hundreds of comments in there. Not only that, there's a robust set of interaction of the community discussion where people are responding to comments that people had previously said, and they liked and disliked certain things. It's an extremely rich set of commentary that is, I would argue, if you read them, is probably a little bit counter to some of the results that were provided in the survey. But I think from a full understanding of how the community evaluated during the period, it would be beneficial if it were included as part of the reference materials. That's something that can be done. And I guess specify that, I know there's a lot, the copy I had actually had people's names in it, so I think that we would want to PII redact all those things, but I think there's a doable way to do that.
Sure, we'll look into the redacted version. I think we do have the Conveo comments available on the project website right now, but I don't think those names are redacted, so we'll have to look into that. And I know that you requested it as to be included in the supplemental packet this evening. We felt that it wasn't in.
That was tough.
Yeah, it wasn't entirely necessary for the purposes of this evening, but could be added to the engagement summary and the reference materials, certainly.
That would be great. I think I've got some of my questions answered about, there were references to the supporting documents that are on the website, but those supporting documents would not be part of the general plan. General plan is intended to be this document and any actual textual references to appendices or other elements such as a housing element. Is that right?
That's correct. The supporting documents that are referenced in the general plan are the existing conditions reports, and I think it was maybe a little bit confusing, the link that was included in the report. Right now, we're in the process of updating the city's entire website, so we know that at some point going forward in the future, our general plan project website, that information will ultimately end up on the city's website, so that link was included, and it didn't help that there was an actual hyperlink in the PDF document that went to a slightly different page than what we were intending it. So we can understand why that there was maybe some confusion with that. But like you said, the existing conditions reports, those are separate, but the appendices are part of the general plan.
So, the premise is there's this document, this
Yes.
one document, and if there is an appendix, the document will reference the appendix.
The appendix is actually included. The two appendixes are included.
But the housing element isn't. It's a
The
separate
housing
document.
element isn't. It's under a separate cover. The engagement summary is separate, and the existing conditions reports are separate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let me see. I think some of my other questions. Okay, there is one, I did have a question about, there's a specific reference to going from dwelling units per net acre to dwelling units per gross acre. Page 50. I think that's right. And my understanding, that is an intentional change in how we consider density?
Yes, absolutely. That was intentional.
Okay. The reason I ask is that currently all of our general plan land use element designations are all dwelling units per net acre. And Measure E says that anything that we do that changes the permitted number of maximum units that could be on properties, we have to be careful about that, otherwise that requires voter approval. So if we use, just as an example of the previous case that we had today, it was a property that was 0.74 gross acres, 0.709 net acres. Using the net acreage, their baseline was 22 units. That's where they started. If you use gross acreage, they would be 23 units. Change in its designation would allow for an increase in the permitted maximum number of dwelling units on all the properties, and you do that citywide, minus whatever the level is below the baseline, that would increase it. Do we understand that that would be the effect of such a change? Maybe something worth considering as we're moving forward toward approval.
In short, Commissioner Ferris, no, because the map as it exists today, the general plan map, the existing map, there was an analysis done and presented to City Council that basically stated that the capacity of the land use area under Measure E was 81,124 units. Now, at that time that calculation was done, they did look at the existing communities and netted out the streets, but they only did that for the existing communities. Any other remaining areas were just looked at from a growth standpoint. So that number, 81,124 units, was based on existing communities and then capacity of any other kind of raw land. By transitioning to gross density, the land use map that's before you today still maintains that capacity. So the existing communities, so for those new areas that introduce residential capacity, such as the mixed use, gross acreage is what is used for the calculation to match that land use capacity under Measure E.
Okay, so I'm assuming then that evidence will be available for the public and the commission and the council prior to approval?
There will be an analysis of, the capacity of each of the land use designations.
Okay. All right, thank you. When it comes to, so I did ask a question about the chapter on open space, that is intended to be the open space element for the general plan.
Yes, that is correct.
Is SOAR, Measure W, included in that chapter? I did not see it. Maybe I missed.
I do not believe it is.
Okay. My understanding is that Measure W is part of the general plan, and it specifically has text that is to be included in the open space element. So unless we are amending the general plan to not include SOAR, we should identify a way for it to be included as part of the open space element in full and without amendment.
We will, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We will look at.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming also, given that Measure E, while it only has 3 years of left of existence, it is also part of the general plan. It will still be part of the general plan as part of this draft. Is that correct?
There's nothing in this draft general plan that affects Measure E. This plan complies with Measure E.
But Measure E, is Measure E going to be part of this general plan?
Measure E is not, sorry. Measure E is not specifically stated within the general plan.
Given that it is part of the general plan and there's no plans to amend or repeal it, it might be advisable if we include it in the text. These all can be referenced and put into appendices, but I think that if we're going to have one general plan and we know where it is and it's part of the general plan, we ought to make sure it's included in full and without amendment.
Well, Measure E allocation is already included on the map.
No, but the measure itself is actually part of the general plan.
It's part of the basis of the land use map that was created, but Measure E is not referenced in the city's current general plan.
As part one of Measure E, it says the general plan is hereby amended. So the proposed amendment, et cetera. So it is part of the general plan. The reason why I bring this up is that I feel like this has been something that has been significantly overlooked with respect to the evaluation of the general plan update. It is something that the voters in 1996 and in 1998 and subsequently in 2016 has said that they want to be a part of with respect to any certain types of changes of the general plan. And there was, in passing these, they did not want these to be amended or repealed without their consent until they sunset, which Measure E would in 3 years. But I just want to make sure, I would like that to be considered because I think that that's what our city law says.
We'll take that into consideration. I think one thing we do have to note that there is a sunset that is within the time frame of the general plan. So to put a policy level document or statement to that effect could actually limit us in terms of possible state law in the future. So right now, as far as the map has been prepared to honor the land use capacity under Measure E.
Okay. Is the intent for some of the designations that are on the general plan land use map that they are in? One of the things I'm a little concerned with is that some of the designations in existing areas actually increase the densities in some existing neighborhoods relative to what they are in the general plan currently.
That's correct, actually, because there are several neighborhoods within the city that were built at densities higher than what the densities that were allowed. Yes, unfortunately. So there are also neighborhoods in the city that allowed for certain parcels to be built at average densities, which created neighborhoods that were built at densities higher than what were allowed.
Do the people in those neighborhoods know that? And one of the reasons is that we've kind of went through and had a understanding how our general plan and our current zoning now intersect with the new laws from Sacramento, which state that the densities for which things can be built must now be at the highest possible densities given the zoning and general plan designations. If their current general plan designations are, say, 4.5 units per acre, and they're changed to be 6 units per acre, there would likely be an increase in the allowable density in their neighborhoods if they don't know
That's
that.
not entirely correct. For the neighborhoods that were given a higher number than what they have now, it's because that number represents what was built on the ground.
There are a lot of areas in Newbury Park and in Westlake Village that are very, I would like to see the evidence of it, that's fine. That's certainly, I'm, given the nature of how the city has gone through and been very consistent with respect to its building within the general plan designations, it would be hard for me to believe a significant amount of the neighborhoods were built at much higher densities than the general plan actually designated. I'd like to see.
They're not
see
much
the evidence
higher.
of it,
They're
but-
actually very, very slight. We're talking about 1.5 DUs per acre. You mentioned 4.5 to 6. So I would say it's actually very slight.
But that's 33% increase in density relative to what's designated now. Something to consider. I think the public just, I would like to know, many of the areas in Newbury Park, and there are some areas in Westlake Village that would see increases in the densities on the general plan for their neighborhoods. And I just would want to know that I and the public know that those would be the impacts for that.
Does that conclude your questions?
It is, all the rest of them are kind of minor
Okay.
wordage, verbiage things, but thank you.
I'm plowing through this. Thank you very much. My question is, will we be getting updates, changes, additions to this? Or is this basically what we need to be studying?
Right now, this is the draft. This is available to the public to review and comment on through mid-September, and then at that point, we'll be reviewing the comments that are received and putting them into a matrix and then submitting them back to Planning Commission for you to review again. Ultimately, there will be a revised general plan based upon the direction that's received from Planning Commission and City Council in terms of what changes should be made based on the public comment. So it's correct for now, but there will be an updated version
But
later.
not until
Not
later
until
this
later.
year?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Do we have, Commissioner Lanson?
I was just going to comment that to the extent we're going to look for acknowledgement of Commissioner Buss, I think former council members Bill De La Pena and Jones would probably like to be included with that acknowledgement as well, since they voted for various portions of the general plan. That just was my thought.
Okay. Do we have any more comments or questions? Okay, so if you'll look at your agenda, I'm now looking for a motion that we receive the presentation and that we find that the presentation does not constitute a project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, et cetera. So I need a motion. Commissioner Link?
I move that we receive and file the presentation, and it does not constitute a project under CEQA.
Okay. Will the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehat?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Yes.
Chair McMahon?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Now is item 9, the time for commission comments and/or any AB 1234 reports. Do we have any comments from my fellow commissioners? Okay, a lot of not shaking of their heads. Item number 10, Mrs. Elia Melkar. Oh, I did it again. I'm so sorry. Are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Yeah, on July 11th, tomorrow evening, City Council will have a continued public hearing from the June 20th meeting on the Latigo mixed-use apartments, a study session on an overview of the draft general plan 2045. It says 2024. And the consent calendar item on the CalApp grant acceptance to comply with the Solar App Senate Bill 379. On July 18th, the second reading of the ordinance for the Latigo project will be on the consent calendar if approved tomorrow evening. Following the summer break, the next council meeting will be September the 12th.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Any other business? Okay, thank you all. We will now adjourn to the next meeting, September 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Good night, everyone.